Picture this. You're married. It's fine. Not great. Kind of running on autopilot. And your wife decides, without really consulting you, to invite the upstairs neighbors over for dinner. The same neighbors whose sex noises have been keeping you up every single night. That is not a horror premise, my friends. That's the setup to a comedy. And honestly, it might be the best one of the year. Yup, I said it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Grab whatever you're drinking, because today we are absolutely tearing into The Invite, Olivia Wilde's new film that detonated at Sundance and just rolled out with A24. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to have big feelings about a piano. Stick around and let's get into it. 1. The backstory nobody talks about. Okay, so here's a fun one. This movie had like a whole previous life before it became the film we got. The Invite is actually an English remake of a 2020 Spanish film called The People Upstairs. Back in 2022, this thing was set to be directed by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris, with an entirely different cast attached. We're talking Amy Adams, Paul Rudd, Tessa Thompson. Can you imagine that version? Totally different energy. And then, nothing. Development just stalled for 2 years. Shelved. Gathering dust. When it finally came roaring back to life, it came back unrecognizable. Olivia Wilde stepped into the director's chair and cast herself in it, alongside Seth Rogen, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. That is a completely different movie now. Different tone, different chemistry, different everything. And here's why that matters to Wilde specifically. This is her first time directing since Don't Worry Darling, a film that, let's be real, got absolutely buried under tabloid noise that had nothing to do with what was actually on the screen. So there was pressure here. Quiet pressure. Can she still do this? Pressure. Spoiler, she can. 2. The setup. So what's this movie actually about? 1 apartment, 4 people, 1 night. That's it. That's the whole sandbox. Joe, played by Rogen, was once a promising indie musician whose career fizzled after a single hit. Now he teaches music while quietly, privately drowning in his own sense of failure. Angela, played by Wilde, is an art school graduate who spent years feeling trapped at home, pouring every ounce of her creativity into renovating an apartment instead of, well, you know, her actual life. Their marriage? Held together with tape and resentment. So with their daughter conveniently at a sleepover, Angela invites the upstairs neighbors down for wine, partly to be sociable, and partly, let's be honest, as a passive-aggressive jab at Joe. Enter Pina, a sexologist and psychotherapist played by Cruz, and Hawk, her ex-firefighter partner, played by Norton. Openly non-monogamous, completely unbothered, and yes, the source of every noise that's been keeping our miserable couple up at night. You can feel where this is supposedly headed. But here's the twist. This isn't really a movie about swinging at all. The Invitation is a Trojan horse. It's really about whether Joe and Angela's marriage is even worth saving, and whether either of them actually wants it to be. 3. Why it actually works. Alright, so this is the part I really want to dig into, because the reviews keep circling back to the same thing. This cast is doing something special. Let's start with Seth Rogen, because I know what you're thinking. Rogen? In a movie about marital collapse and emotional catharsis? I had the same eyebrow raised. But Peter Bradshaw at The Guardian specifically called him out as on top of his game here. And once you watch it, you get it. Joe could have been written as a total nightmare. Passive, checked out, kind of pathetic. Instead, Rogen finds this really specific, wounded humanity in him. He's funny, obviously, because it's Rogen, but there's this undercurrent the whole time of a guy who knows his entire comfortable life was basically handed to him, and he's never actually earned anything himself. That's a heavier thing to play than it sounds like, and he threads it without ever losing the comedy. And then there's Penelope Cruz. Pina could have just been the sexy, unbothered neighbor, a prop, basically. Instead, she brings this grounded confidence to the role that makes the character feel like she's genuinely lived the life she's talking about, not just performing liberation for the room. And here's a fun little detail. She reportedly taught Edward Norton Spanish for this role, which tells you something about the level of texture these actors were building into their characters, even off camera. The reviews keep pointing at the same thing. Split these two couples up throughout the night, and you get completely different chemistry every time. Rogen and Cruz together hit differently than Wilde and Norton do. That's not an accident. That's the whole design of the script, using these four actors like instruments in slightly different combinations to keep unearthing new tension. Now, it's not flawless, and I want to be fair here. Vulture's Bilge Ebiri pushed back hard, saying some of the emotional turns don't feel fully earned, and was pretty brutal on Dev Hynes' score, which, fair point, does lean hard into amplifying whatever a scene is already feeling. There's a dialogue scene that gets scored like it's a horror movie. That's a choice. But here's what got me. Multiple reviews say the film is almost determined to be wrong-headed in its first act, like it's testing you, before it pivots hard and completely repairs your trust in it. Roger Ebert's site flat out called the final half hour the best directing Wilde has ever done. That is not a small claim. 4. The ending. Alright, quick warning, if you haven't watched it yet, skip ahead about 60 seconds. I mean it. Still with me? Great, let's go. The film opens on a flashback. Joe and Angela, young, happy, playing piano together, paired with an Oscar Wilde quote. "One should always be in love. That is the reason one should never marry." That line is basically the movie's whole thesis, dropped right in frame one. Then the entire night happens. Everything gets said. Every wall comes down. And the final scene brings them right back to that same piano, same instrument, same closeness we saw at the very beginning. Here's why that matters. Wilde deliberately refuses to tell you what that callback means. Is this a couple who just rediscovered their spark? Or is it one last beautiful echo of something that's already over? She's not answering that for you. And honestly, that's the whole point. That ambiguity is why people are still arguing about this movie online right now. So here's what I keep coming back to. Is staying together for the history or for the kids actually the right call? Or does a marriage that needs a stranger's help just to reignite already have its answer, whether the characters want to admit it or not? That's the question the invite leaves you with, sitting in your car, staring at absolutely nothing. Drop your read in the comments. Reignited spark or a beautiful goodbye?